Gwit, hello. I am a leprechaun. I am dressed in green, the fairy color. I also look like a household familiar, as I am old and small, but strong and shapeshift. My name comes from the Irish word for shoemaker, and that's usually my job. I hide my pot of gold and the treasure of fairies at the end of rainbows, as I am a banker as well. My purse enables me to come through tricky situations too. Solitary and malicious, I show up during the night. Here is one of my legendary stories.
This man caught the leprechaun one morning near Clechanilleur and made a close prisoner of him. There was no chance that he would get off until he told the man where the gold was. "If you bring me out to the fort field, I'll show you where the gold is." The man brought him out, and the fairy showed him a big buckcullen. "Dig under this weed tomorrow morning, and you'll get a crock of gold." "Wait," says he, "and we'll mark it. Take off my right garter, and tie it around the buckcullen so that you'll know where to dig in the morning." The man did as he was told, and let the little man go. When he came out in the morning, there was a red garter on every buckcullen in the field, thousands of them, all the same size and the same pattern.
In most of these legends, I am captured by a human who wants me to make him rich, but I disappear in a glimpse. Capturing me is not the best way to become friends, don't you think? I am ambiguous, as I can bring good luck as well as death. An Irish teacher has been asked his opinion on leprechauns.
Okay, how did the leprechaun become an Irish stereotype? I think the idea of the leprechaun being an Irish stereotype probably has its origins in some literature from the late 19th century and early 20th century, but I think in particular it may have something to do with Walt Disney. There's a film called Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and it concerns Irish folklore, but in a slightly stereotypical way. Really what Darby O'Gill represents is an effort by the Walt Disney Corporation to turn Irish folklore into something commodified for the sake of the movie. They made this movie in the 20th century. Sean Connery is in it and a couple of other actors. But Walt Disney, as part of his researches, came to the National Folklore Archives and looked up various different aspects of folk tradition. So he looked at the idea of little people, of leprechauns, of the fairies. There's lots of things like the Coach de Bower, the Death Coach, and the Banshee, and all of these kinds of things. But King Brian of the Little People was one of the central characters in it. And I think he contributed to the popular view of the leprechaun. He was dressed in green, and he was a kind of a trickster character in the movie. And I think that sort of it put a lot of aspects of Irish folklore into the spotlight in popular culture in the US mainly. And I think that's probably where a lot of the images in the US and in Britain, where the stereotypical images of leprechauns and Irish folklore comes from. And in a way, through commercialization, the Irish have adapted that, mainly out of ignorance, I think anyway. People who are not familiar enough with their own folk culture are looking at other people's view of our culture from the outside, and have adapted that sort of outsider view. The clothes that the leprechaun wears in this sort of stereotypical thing are the regular clothes of late 19th century, early 20th century. It also feeds into a kind of this notion that the British had of the stage Irishman, the sort of drunken man wearing a particular type of hat and shoes and clothes. And the leprechaun is, to me anyway, I find it almost borderline offensive kind of stereotype, but lots of Irish people who don't know anything about their own culture or the folk traditions embrace it. Images of leprechauns in gift shops and dressing up as leprechauns on St. Patrick's Day and things like that. So I suppose the genie's out of the bottle and I can't put it back in. How far does the representation of leprechauns in gift shops correspond to their history? In a way, I suppose they're reasonably accurate of a particular view of leprechauns, which would be a late 19th century popular culture view of leprechauns, slightly stereotyped. But leprechauns in their depiction, one of the earliest depictions we have of leprechauns is actually the Lucharbon, the small-bodied creature which went swimming with Fergus MacLeite in a mythological story. They're not specifically described as wearing particular clothes until you see them in 19th century and early 20th century folk tradition. And although certain colours are favoured, they might wear green or they might wear red, their clothes are contemporary to the time. But because of the stereotypical image that we have, they basically froze the view of leprechauns in this late 19th, early 20th century view of them. And that is how they appear now. So they appear in outdated and outmoded clothes. But really, the tradition up to that point had been they were wearing maybe green or red versions of clothes, which were contemporary to the times. So, in this sort of concretization or this sort of freezing in the popular mind of what leprechauns are supposed to look like, they've frozen this one particular view, and that's it. That's what they're going to look like from now on. And like I said, really, the point is to sell, to commercialize, and to sell this thing, just to package it into a neatly and easily recognized product that people can commodify. So that's really what they have done to leprechauns.